Hello and welcome to another blog post for CSC-355. This is blog post number 6, and in this video I'll be covering the UI and VFX missions. First of all, with the UI mission, I feel like this one's a little bit more important. A user interface is vital to every game, just because whether it be interacting with the menu or changing certain settings, it's just critical for the player to be able to have that input-output with the game. The VFX mission or visual effects is also pretty important. Sometimes you can get away without having them and the game will still run just fine. However, it does just make the game look a little bit more professional. It adds a nice touch. And so I was glad that I covered in both of these missions and learned all this material. I think it'll be super useful for when I'm building my game for my game jam. I do have a lot to cover with these two missions, so please bear with me. We might be moving kind of quickly through some of this stuff, but I'm just going to go ahead and jump in with some demonstrations. So first of all, we have our user interface mission, and the goal of this mission was to create an interactive title screen. You'll see that I have no problem. I can move through the world just like this, and the text and all the buttons are here actually part of the world. If I hover over these buttons, notice how they change color. And if I click on them, they go even darker. This just helps the user navigate the menu and know what they can click on and what they can't. If I click on the settings button, you'll notice all of this text here and buttons disappears, and this new menu over here opens up. First of all, I'm going to test out the music and volume. So you can see here I can toggle it on and off. And then I can do the same thing. I can change the volume up or down for the slider. And there you can see it just gets louder and quieter. And then the same is true for the glow. So here, if you look at the top, if I toggle it on and off, and then if it's toggled on, I can change the brightness, make it brighter or dimmer based on this intensity slider. So that works pretty well. Now I'm going to look behind the scenes and show you how I implemented some of these things. So first of all, for the canvas, this is how you would sort of create any new UI object. So you'd go here and create, again, a slider or a toggle or just text. And you can see I have like my title and my buttons here. For the settings button, you'll see quickly here, I have the highlighted colors, which just makes it easier for the user. And then I also have down here, basically when the button is clicked, it will set other objects to active or inactive. So in this case, when you click on the settings button, the settings menu will be set to active. All the other stuff will disappear. And then if we go into the settings menu, the close or exit button, that will take the settings menu away and bring everything else back and turn it back on. For the music toggle and volume slider, you'll see that we have our audio source, just a soundtrack there in the object. And then we have we just enable it or disable it here, or in the case of the volume, there's a built-in volume function, which just allows us to slide the slider one way or the other to make it louder or quieter. For the glow toggle and glow slider, it wasn't that simple. There was no built-in function like that to change the emission or intensity values. And so I had to create my own script for that, which was a little bit challenging, but I'll go ahead and walk you through it. So at the top here, we just have some basic initialization stuff. And then in the start function, we're reading in our colors and materials. Here in the update function is where most of the stuff is happening. Here's the negation sign. So if the toggle is set to off, essentially, it will change the emission color to black. And we know that black is the absence of color. So if this is the case where the toggler is set to off, then there will be no emission color. However, if it's set to on, or so in this else statement, you can see it's going to read in the value of the slider. And then we could just directly multiply that slider value to the color and change it that way. That would work just fine. And I had that, but I found this way works a little bit better doing it exponentially. It just makes the slider look a little bit better after that was just a trial and error. And so that's how I decided to do it. And then again, at the end, you just basically apply that color to the game object. And so that's how the I implemented this entire UI title screen here. This one was a little bit challenging, and I especially like the glowing and intensity part. I really struggled with it, but I'm pretty proud of how it turned out after I got it done, and it was very satisfying, and I'm happy with how it looks right now. And that wraps up everything for the UI mission. Actually, I did forget one quick thing. I'm just gonna move on. We have a lot to cover. So here's the visual effects scene. I apologize if I'm just going to show right now. It might look a little bit choppy or like for the Zoom video. I tried doing it, optimizing it for video, but if I do that, it takes my face cam away. So I just decided to do it this way, and it might look a little bit choppy, but hopefully you'll still get the idea. We have a lot of different effects here. I'm going to go through them one by one. First of all is the snow. And if we go ahead here and click on the snow, you'll see we can change a lot of this different stuff here with it. We can change the size of the particles. So right now I have it selected to like, it's a random between two constants. So you can see some of the snow particles are bigger than others. If I just set it to constant, you know, I could just set it to 0.1 or something like that. And then now they're all the same size here as they come down. If I select one of the, I'm just going to go ahead and turn the snow off right now so it's easier to see the fire. For the fire, you'll notice there's a couple of different things. First of all, we have our light in here, the point light. We also have the smoke as well as the smoke burst. So when I can click here and extinguish the fire, you'll see it creates this little effect. If I light it back up, you'll see it comes back on. And then finally, we also have the sparks. So these little white, or, you know, those little sparks, basically. So a couple other things that we can change with this. Again, there's just a lot that you can do with this. I'll start with I'll just start with the sparks. We can also change the shape. So in this case, it's a cone. So same as the smoke, it just kind of veers off as it goes higher, versus one of the other effects like the smoke burst, it'll be in the shape of a sphere, so it'll just kind of go outwards in the shape of like a ball. We can change the lifetime here, the start lifetime. So you'll notice the smoke only goes up to about here. If we change the start lifetime to something like 5, it will, the smoke will start to go higher up in the air like that. So that's another thing that we can change. We also have the color over lifetime. So we have a certain gradient here, and we can just play around with that and get it the exact color that we want. And there's other things here too. So if I go to renderer, you can see that it has the fire material. So this is what makes it actually look like smoke, as opposed to like some of these other effects that I have going on in the background. It's just like plain blank particles, basically. My idea with this stuff in the background was basically like, for my own game, I was thinking about, for the game jam, I was thinking about doing like a puzzle or story game. And these effects might like draw the player's attention over here. You can see they can pick up a lighter, and then maybe they look back over here and go back to the fire. And then they can press a button and start the fire up and just like sort of complete challenges and do stuff like that. And yeah, that's basically how that all works. A couple more things that I wanted to show with this one. First of all, we can create a new effect by right clicking in the hierarchy and basically just putting down a particle system. That's how that works. And then we can start to change all these values like I did for the other ones. And one of the other things that they did want to show was this visual VFX graph, basically. So here was my version of the snow coming down here. If we turn that off and select this VFX graph version, you'll notice this one looks really good. It looks better than mine. It just looks very realistic. And I was pretty impressed with how this works. If we look sort of, again, just a little bit deeper into this, this is a VFX graph. There's 4 different stages here. I did play around with these values and notice how they changed how the snow looked. And it looks really cool. However, I just think it's a little bit more intricate and detailed than I would like. I think the regular snow that I have set up like this looks just about good enough for my purposes, for my game jam. So I probably won't go too deep into the VFX graph stuff, but that just gives you an idea for some of the stuff that I've been working on with this particular scene. And that's everything that I wanted to cover for the UI and for the VFX. So now I'll just go ahead and demonstrate both of these things for my guided project. First of all, again, you can see the same thing. In this case, I did go with the screen space overlay. So you can see this UI is just anchored to the screen here. And we have the same thing. We have our text and everything on there. I'll go ahead and play so we can see the other stuff, how it works and everything. Starting with the volume. And we'll just leave that off for now, but you can see the volume works. It's the same thing as before. We apply our audio source soundtrack there, and we use this built-in volume function to alter the volume. And then we also have this particles active checkbox. So in our particles toggle, you can see it basically just takes the different particle systems that I have in there. So in this case, like the smoke, and it'll set, basically if we can just toggle it on and off because this is set to enabled. For this particular visual effect, I kind of did the same thing as the previous mission, you know, changing the shape and the lifetime and the material, the gradient, just all the different stuff to get this to look like smoke. And I think it looks decent. It works pretty well. We also have the camera buttons. So for the first button here will enable the storefront camera and disable the pedestrian camera. And then the other button just does the opposite. And so basically, when we start our game by clicking on one of these camera buttons, so camera 1 will take us to the hotel storefront, and then camera 2 will take us to the pedestrian camera. And you can see we can just toggle back and forth between them. If we leave it on this one, again, we can see our particle effects there. We can toggle them on and off. And admittedly, this one maybe doesn't look quite as good as the previous mission. I tried doing it completely from scratch rather than just copying and pasting the values directly from the previous mission, just to sort of challenge myself a little bit. It doesn't look perfect. It could maybe use a little bit of work, but ultimately it doesn't look bad. You get the idea. And yeah, this scene is pretty cool. It basically blends together the cameras, which I worked on in the previous blog post, as well as the visual effects and user interface missions that I covered in this one. And it sort of, again, just blends all those three together pretty seamlessly into this scene. And I'm pretty happy with how this turned out as well. So yeah, that touches on everything I wanted to cover. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one with a future Creative Core mission.